NBC's Antonia Hilton joins us from Raleigh, North Carolina this morning. Also with us, senior political editor Mark Murray, Eugene Daniels, Politico White House correspondent, and Ashley Parker, Washington Post senior national political correspondent. Antonia, Robinson says he isn't going anywhere. What more do we know, and how are people there in North Carolina reacting to this?
Good morning, Anna. Well, Robinson definitely isn't going anywhere because the deadline for him to have dropped out was 11:59 p.m. last night, and that, of course, came and went. And he has doubled down, denying these accusations and saying that he plans to stay in this race. And voters, politicians, staffers here in North Carolina, they're just reeling with this news. Democrats have been gleeful. I've been on the phone with many of them. They think that this is something that's likely to drag down the entire Republican ticket and help them as they try to forge a path for Harris to take this state and to pull off a win here in North Carolina. The reaction from Republicans has been all over the place. So some state-level Republican officials have been deleting photos of them hanging out with Robinson at events, appearing with him in certain places. And then the Trump campaign released a statement saying that they are focused on winning. But interestingly, that statement, Anna, didn't actually mention Robinson. And that may be the most telling thing of all here, that we might see some Republicans sort of start to distance themselves from him. He is, as of now, we don't know about any appearances he's planning to make today, but it'll be interesting to see, does he get invited to the next Trump rally here, I think, coming up pretty soon in Wilmington here in North Carolina? And do other state-level Republicans continue to appear alongside him? That's very much an open question, but certainly the feeling here on the ground is that people are going to try to move forward without Robinson at their side, Anna.
Antonia Hilton, thank you. Keep us posted as things develop there on the ground in North Carolina. Mark, interesting to see the Trump campaign really distancing themselves from Robinson, because it was Trump's backing that really helped Robinson win the primary there. North Carolina, of course, a key battleground. What are the political implications of all this?
Yeah, I think on the presidential race, North Carolina is definitely in play for the Harris campaign. And it's worth remembering that Joe Biden only ended up losing North Carolina by 1 percentage point in 2020. But since Biden's exit from the 2024 race, we have actually seen Harris doing very well in those Sun Belt states, including North Carolina. There was a Quinnipiac poll that showed her ahead by 3 points within the margin of error. That is kind of replicated by other polls that we've seen. And then when it comes to the North Carolina gubernatorial contest, Democrat Josh Stein has been ahead by double digits over Mark Robinson. And that's also been consistent with other polling. So the Democrats, even before what ended up happening yesterday, have been in pretty good shape in North Carolina. Of course, on it is worth noting, we've seen many polls in North Carolina in the 2020 cycle, as well as even in 2016, with Democrats doing well and then Republicans gaining ground and winning at the end.
And Eugene, Trump not only backed Robinson, but he compared him to Martin Luther King Jr. Take a listen.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids. Okay, now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2.
So talk to us about the impact for Trump. And I understand, Eugene, you have some new reporting on how the Harris campaign views this.
Yeah, I mean, this is the issue that a lot of Republicans have had with Trump for a while, is that he picks these candidates who say these wild things. Even, this is the first time that Mark Robinson has said something like similar to this in the same ilk of wild. And I think the idea that this is going to change a lot of it is probably true, right? For Donald Trump, choosing candidates who are in his ilk but can't really sell it in the same way he does, and that will double and triple down. Mark Robinson said, you know my words, and the words have not been great for a long time. I talked to Brian Fallon. He's a senior communications advisor for Vice President Harris on her campaign side for our podcast that came out this morning. And I asked him straight off about Mark Robinson and how they feel like it impacts their ability to win. Mark is right. They did seem to feel like they were in a good place. And I think what was interesting is they tied him directly to Trump, that this this is a Trump candidate. This is someone who, at the end of the day, believes a lot of the things that Trump believes. And so, as you can imagine, the Martin Luther King Trump thing is going to be cut into ads over and over and over and run in North Carolina.
And interestingly enough, according to this CNN reporting, Mark Robinson said terrible things about Martin Luther King in the past. Anyway, the North Carolina Republican Party is standing by their guy, putting out a statement last night supporting Robinson, saying in part, quote, Mark Robinson has categorically denied the allegations made by CNN, but that won't stop the left from trying to demonize him via personal attacks. And Ashley, we know Robinson is no stranger to controversial comments or bad news cycles. In fact, I mean, he has said so many things that have left him in a bad spotlight in the past, including these kinds of comments.
Take a look at the so-called civil rights movement of the 1960s. Mm-hmm. How the socialists, how the communists used that to manipulate people in this country.
Some liberal somewhere is going to say that sounds awful. Too bad. Get mad at me if you want to. Some folks need killing. It's time for somebody to say it. If you were a man on Friday night, and all of a sudden Saturday you feel like a woman and you want to go in the women's bathroom in the mall, you will be arrested. But whatever y'all do, protect our women.
Ashley, if you have a candidate that is this divisive, I mean, how did he end up being the Republican nominee?
Well, that's one of the things when we were calling around yesterday, we heard there was going to be a shoe to drop, to put it mildly, and we were trying to figure out what it was. There were rumors he was going to drop out. And one thing I heard from a number of even Republicans in North Carolina was this private frustration that it should have never gotten to this point, that there was a sense that it was very easy to dig up opposition research on him and controversial comments with very little effort. But it's worth noting that Michael Whatley, who was running the Republican Party in North Carolina while this was going on, he's now Trump's RNC chairman, his sort of chosen RNC chairman. So a lot of people are now also worried about that and questioning his judgment and sort of frustrated that the party kind of rolled over on a candidate who, even before this happened, and again, this was not the Oppo research anyone was aware of, but they already felt was a pretty poor candidate who would be very easily tied to Trump and tied to controversial comments and statements and offending various groups you need to win in a way that would not be helpful electorally.
I mean, but is this the best they got? Is this the best that the Republicans think they've got in North Carolina? The fact that they, coalesce behind this man?
Well, again, one of the reasons he was able to succeed was he had Trump's endorsement. And this is something we've seen if you go back to previous election cycles. One of the frustrations has been in these primaries and in a lot of the districts, not here, obviously, but the primary sort of is the fight for the Republicans. If you win the primary, you can beat your general election opponent, depending on if the district is gerrymandered or not. That Trump will come in and he likes certain candidates. He likes a look, or he likes a fighter mentality, or he likes a frisson of controversy, and he backs them. And then the party is too afraid to cross him. And then you are left with a bunch of candidates who don't necessarily fare particularly well in a general election contest.
Mark, we've been down this road before. There were Republican candidates, Doug Mastriano, Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz. None of them called themselves a Nazi, but they all had controversies that followed them on the campaign trail. It seems this keeps happening within the Republican Party.
Yeah, as Ashley was just kind of mentioning, this kind of vying for Donald Trump's endorsement sometimes hasn't worked very well for Republicans. We saw that play out in the 2022 midterms, Anna, as you were just mentioning there. It is worth noting, though, that scandals and controversies right before Election Day can be a bipartisan affair. It was just 4 years ago where Cal Cunningham, the Democratic candidate for Senate, got caught up in a sex texting scandal that hurt Democrats' chances of winning that Senate seat. But you're exactly right that when it comes to the Doug Mastrianos, Herschel Walkers, the Mehmet Oz, Carrie Lake is running once again this 2024 cycle. A lot of Republicans often say, hey, Donald Trump is bulletproof, and I think that there's debate about that. But controversies and scandals certainly have helped take down other Republicans in the Donald Trump era.
And Eugene, the Trump campaign has talked a lot about trying to make inroads in the black community, particularly with black men. This doesn't seem like it would help.
No, I don't think calling himself a black Nazi is going to help with many of any black voters. But at the end of the day, the way that Republicans in the Trump campaign have worked on their black voter outreach has at times been kind of clumsy, right? Because Republicans are kind of new at it, right? Trying to figure out what black voters want. And so talking and thinking about rappers as the way to get in, that, shiny gold lame shoes as the way to get into black voters, voting booth mentality. And so instead of understanding that black voters care about the same thing every voter cares about, they care about the economy because they care about healthcare, all of the things that white voters care about and feel like impacts their lives, impacts black people even more, right? One of the sayings in the black community is if America gets a cold, black people get the flu. And so understanding that aspect is more important than trying to figure out the other ways. I think someone like Mark Robinson, he didn't seem like he himself was trying to make inroads with black voters in any way, shape, or form. His comments about the civil rights movement, about Martin Luther King Jr., and now this, I think it's over and over and over again, voters in North Carolina are seeing something that they're probably not interested in, especially in the black community. However, and Mark's right, North Carolina has continued to feel like Lucy with the football for Democrats over the years, but they're feeling much better than they have before, and now they have some help with the gubernatorial candidate on the Republican side, frankly.
We just got some new reporting that Robinson will not be attending Donald Trump's event in North Carolina over the weekend.